This is one hell of a lawsuit. It says that WhatsApp's end-to-end encryption is a total lie and that the Zuck can quite literally read all of our messages. Also in your hacking news roundup, why cybercriminals want to crash your browser and how reusing an email address could cost this guy 10 years in prison. But first, on WhatsApp, before you message someone for the first time, you're told messages and calls are end-to-end encrypted. Only people in this chat can read, listen to, or share them. This is a total lie. Well, according to this new lawsuit. It was only filed a couple days ago and says that WhatsApp has been lying to us for years. Whilst they publicly say that privacy and security is in their DNA, behind our backs they store, analyse and can access virtually all of WhatsApp users' private communications. And it's allegedly super easy for Meta employees to gain this level of access. They send a request to a Meta engineer explaining that they need this access for whatever reason. The engineering team will then grant that access, often without much scrutiny. Then the employee can use some kind of a tool where they can pull up any WhatsApp user's messages just from knowledge of their user ID. They can then read every message you've ever sent, even ones that you've deleted. As for Meta's senior leadership, they've allegedly tried to keep this all secret by siloing off different teams within the company so that no one person can piece together the full truth, directing them to stay in their own lanes and imposing strict non-disclosure agreements on workers to keep this all hidden. But how does this all work? WhatsApp makes a big deal of the fact that they use the encryption protocol developed by the rival messaging app Signal because it's open source and widely trusted. The lawsuit doesn't allege that this protocol itself is backdoored, but points out that whilst Signal's code is open source, WhatsApp's implementation of it definitely isn't. They don't make their source code available to the public or even to third-party security auditors, and that WhatsApp's "Trust me bro" promise is just not true. These are some pretty spicy allegations, but what's the evidence? The document relies heavily on anonymous whistleblowers, but it doesn't tell us who they are. I've read all 51 pages of the complaint, but there's no concrete evidence. There's no logs proving WhatsApp can read our messages, or anything even coming close to that. However, you wouldn't expect any hard evidence at this stage. This is just the first filing in the lawsuit. It's essentially a list of allegations. However, I've got to be honest, I am pretty skeptical here. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to call out WhatsApp's failings and Meta being evil, but the idea that WhatsApp has this level of a backdoor just seems a bit far-fetched. I could well be wrong. There are a lot of reasons to distrust Meta. Half of this document is dedicated to listing out all of them, and if these new claims turn out to be true, it would easily be the biggest Meta betrayal of all time by quite a margin. Meta themselves have responded by saying that the claims are categorically false and absurd, and that the lawsuit is a frivolous work of fiction. But we'll see. The lawsuit is being brought by an international group of plaintiffs. As far as I can tell, there's no big names in here, nobody notable, though maybe I didn't Google them enough. Whoever they are, they have some pretty expensive lawyers representing them. So grab some popcorn and hit that subscribe button, because whatever ends up happening, it's not going to be boring. If only learning valuable life skills could also not be boring. Well, smart learners don't get bored. That's the philosophy behind Boot.dev. Here, learning to code feels less like sitting in a classroom and more like playing a game. And I would know, being one of their paying customers myself. You'll be learning back-end development, but lessons are taught as if you're building a video game. It's strange at first, you're learning new things, but in a familiar way, as if you already know what's going on. And just like playing a game, by coding you'll earn XP, level up, there's even boss battles. There's so many ways to learn to code, but with Boot.dev I can honestly say that I've never gotten bored following one of their lessons. Sure, you will get stuck on occasion, but that's where Boots comes in. He's your personal AI tutor, always on hand to nudge you in the right direction. But Boot.dev won't let you get totally hooked on lessons. Very quickly you'll start building your own projects, helping you make the notoriously tricky transition from completing tutorials to actually taking the initiative to write real code. It's totally free to read and watch all the course content, but when you're ready to get started, you can get 25% off with code Statonic, and better yet, with their 30-day no questions asked refund policy, giving their don't get bored philosophy a try is totally risk-free. Next up, hackers are getting real creative. This new technique involves intentionally crashing your browser, all as part of an elaborate social engineering trick. This all starts off fairly vanilla, with the victim searching for an ad blocker and stumbling across NextShield. On the surface, it looks like any other generic ad blocker, which can be installed as an extension on Edge or Chrome. But behind the scenes, NextShield is pretty much a total clone of uBlock Origin Lite, made possible because their code is open source. However, NextShield has some extra hidden undocumented features. As soon as you install it, a 60-minute timer starts in the background. This is so that you don't immediately associate the extension with what's about to happen next. When 60 minutes is up, your browser becomes unresponsive and randomly crashes. So what's going on here? Security researchers show us that NextShield calls a certain function which creates an object and adds it to an array. This isn't malicious, except for the fact it does it a billion times before calling the function all over again. And no matter how much money you've spent on RAM, your browser will eventually crash. But this also crashes NextShield itself. The real fun only happens when you reopen your browser and this legit looking pop-up appears, warning that the crash might have been caused by potential security threats and that you should probably run a scan. And the hackers even put the cherry on the authenticity cake by asking if you want to send a crash report to Microsoft. If you close this pop-up, a new 10-minute timer starts before your browser is crashed all over again. This keeps on happening until you give in and run that scan. A fake loading bar makes you wait 15 seconds before we're presented with a perfect example of a click fix attack. Security issues detected. You need to manually fix this by pressing some buttons on your keyboard. But by hitting that shortcut, most people will have no idea that they've just spawned a portal to hell, and by running the command, which has been automatically copied to the clipboard for our convenience, we're willingly downloading malware. The hacker behind this is known as Kong2k. They're focused on infiltrating corporate environments thanks to the potential for million-dollar ransomware payouts. So after the malware is downloaded, it'll first check if the victim PC is domain joined. In other words, is it part of a wider corporate network? If so, then they'll get the VIP treatment. This comes in the form of ModeloRat, a remote access tool which supports an array of features designed to give Kong2k the ability to explore their victim a bit, so they can figure out how best to make some coin. If the victim PC isn't domain joined, then Kong2k isn't so interested. The command and control server just responds with a test string. There isn't even a payload. Thanks to the researchers, the malicious extension has now been removed from the Chrome Web Store, and this campaign is now over. But something tells me we haven't seen the last of this little social engineering trick. Next up, a prolific cybercriminal could be spending the next 10 years in federal prison thanks to a series of super stupid OPSEC mistakes. In the cybercriminal underworld, he was known as Riz, well known on cybercrime forums for selling cracked versions of red teaming tools and malware that could bypass EDR platforms like CrowdStrike. Riz had earned a pretty good reputation. He was even mentioned by name in several threat intelligence reports, but this is when the FBI took an interest in Riz, putting undercover agents on the case. They DM'd him, asking about his malware that could disable EDR, agreeing on a price of $15,000 per exploit. The feds spun up a server so that Riz could prove that his malware actually worked, but of course they were monitoring everything, which is when Riz made his first OPSEC mistake by connecting to it using the exact same IP address that was involved in a ransomware attack just a few months earlier, an attack that ended up causing $50 million worth of damage. But as well as selling malware, Riz was an initial access broker, a class of cybercriminal who does the hard work of actually hacking into companies before selling access to other cybercriminals who do the dirty work of figuring out how to leverage that access to make a profit. When the feds came across a forum post where he was selling access to 50 different companies, they bought the lot for an undisclosed amount of crypto. By this point, Riz had built up enough of a reputation to be publicly labelled as a credible threat actor by multiple US federal agencies. But a certain OPSEC mistake he made years ago was just waiting to be discovered. Whilst the investigation was underway, a totally separate investigation meant that the feds gained access to a database belonging to a certain cybercriminal forum. We don't know which one, but there are several possibilities. The database revealed that someone created an account in 2018 under the username Riz, but this silly goose created that account using a Gmail address which was quite literally registered in his real name, revealing him to be the 40-year-old Jordanian citizen, and apologies in advance for the pronunciation, Ferris al-Bashiti. And in 2016, he even applied for a US visa using this very email address, which is probably where they got his mugshot from. Ferris Albashity was found living in Georgia, the country, not the state, but the feds didn't have much trouble extraditing him, and after pleading guilty, he's now facing up to 10 years in prison and a pretty chonky fine. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.